Welcome to the year 1327. You wake up, not to the soft hum of traffic outside your window, not to the buzz of your phone beside your pillow, but to the cold, damp air of a thatched roof hut. The light seeping in through the cracks in the wooden slats is gray, not quite dawn, not quite day, and it carries with it the earthy scent of mud, animals, and old straw. Your blanket is coarse wool, scratchy against your skin. There is no mattress beneath you, only a sagging sack filled with hay, and perhaps a mouse or two who decided to share the warmth in the night. You sit up slowly. Your body aches in ways you don't quite understand. Your back feels tight, your neck stiff. There is a chill in the room that cuts through your bones. And you realize, too late, that your feet are bare against the cold dirt floor. The hut is small, no larger than a modern storage unit. There are no decorations, no conveniences. Only necessity lives here. A three-legged stool, a lopsided table, a jug of stale water, and a bucket in the corner that serves as your chamber pot. You do not know the date, but the people around you will one day refer to it as the year 1327. You have awoken in a small English village, a speck of human settlement, amid an ocean of wilderness. You are not royalty, not clergy, not a knight. You are a peasant, a villain, more precisely a bonded tenant farmer who owes labor and rent to the local lord. You will not own land. You will not vote. You will not choose your occupation. You will work, and you will die, and both may come sooner than you think. The first sounds you hear are the lowing of cattle and the soft cluck of chickens. Someone nearby is already at work, likely your neighbor, whose hut is no more than 10 steps from yours. Though a thin hedge and mud wall provide a semblance of privacy, the village awakens not with alarm clocks, but with instinct and duty. The sun rises, and the world begins to move. You step outside and are immediately greeted by mud. There are no cobblestones here, no pavement, just churned earth, made slick by morning dew and the trampling of hooves and feet. Your feet sink slightly with every step. You glance down and see that your hem is already soiled. Though it hardly matters, you own 2 tunics, one to wear, one to wash, and both are perpetually stiff with dirt. The air is filled with the scent of smoke, manure, and human sweat. A haze of wood smoke clings to the village like a second skin. Somewhere, someone is already baking bread in a clay oven. The aroma is faint but grounding, reminding you that food, though meager, awaits. You have no idea where your next full meal will come from, but for now, there is porridge, thick and gray, and a crust of yesterday's bread. The village is small. No more than 50 souls live here. You know them all. Birth and death are community events, and everyone is part of everyone else's story. Gossip is currency. You are known not by your achievements, but by your lineage and your labor. You are not an individual in the modern sense. You are a function, a hand on a plow, a body for the fields. Church bells toll from the stone chapel at the edge of the village. though there is no priest today. He comes once a fortnight. For now, it is old Elric who rings the bells, a man who has outlived 3 wives and half his teeth. The bells are not quite in tune, but they mark time in a world without watches. Time here is told in seasons, in sowing and reaping, in the waning of candles and the growth of beards. Your day begins with labor. It always does. There is no leisure in the modern sense. You will not scroll, or sip, or stretch in quiet contemplation. You will carry, lift, dig, haul. Today, it is your turn to tend to the fields. You are part of a rota, a rotation system that divides the Lord's land among the peasants for upkeep. The land is not yours, but the burden is. The field is a 20-minute walk from the village. You pass other laborers along the way. Some greet you with nods, others with suspicion. Your body is young, and that makes you valuable. It also makes you a threat. You are not yet married, not yet tied into the complex web of familial obligation. You are free, in the loosest sense, but only until someone decides otherwise. In the field, the work is back-breaking. The soil is heavy from rain, and the plow wooden. Dull is dragged by an ox with more attitude than strength. You dig, you lift, you sweat. Your hands blister. You do not stop, because stopping means falling behind. And falling behind means drawing attention. Lunch is not a break. It is a moment to chew. You sit on a stone and eat what you carried. A piece of coarse bread, a slice of salted turnip, and if you're lucky, a bit of cheese that hasn't gone entirely sour. You drink water from a leather pouch, though you know it may carry illness. You drink anyway. By evening, your body screams. Your tunic clings to your back with sweat. You trudge home, not with triumph, but with survival. Children run past you, barefooted and shrieking with joy. They know nothing yet of the weight you carry. Their laughter echoes off the timbered walls of cottages, fading as the wind picks up. Dinner is simple. Pottage a thick soup of beans, onions, and herbs, boiled for hours over a smoky hearth. You eat with a wooden spoon. There is no seasoning, only sustenance. You sit on a stool beside your hut's central fire, grateful for warmth, wary of sparks. Night falls quickly. There are no lamps, only the flicker of tallow candles and the red eye of embers. You lie down on your hay mattress and pull the wool blanket over your shoulders. The stars outside shine bright, brighter than you've ever seen, but they offer no comfort, only distance. You think about tomorrow, and the day after, and whether your boots will last another winter, and whether you'll be called to dig ditches, or collect taxes, or bury the dead. You close your eyes, and the dark welcomes you. Welcome to the year 1327. You have survived your first day, barely. The smell of the streets. The second day begins much like the first, early, cold, and rough. But now that your senses are awakening to the world around you, Something presses in more forcefully than the ache in your limbs or the growl in your stomach. It's the smell. You noticed it faintly on your first day, masked beneath the crusty bread and pungent smoke. But today, it has settled in your nose with a stubbornness that no amount of fresh air can loosen. You are inside the village proper now, and with that comes a truth you hadn't been prepared for. The medieval world stinks. The air carries layers upon layers of scent, each one competing for dominance. The mud beneath your feet is a sludge of manure, rot, and urine. Waste from animals and humans alike seeps into the soil. There is no sewage system here, no drainage, no clean gutters. The stream that runs near the village serves multiple purposes. It is the water supply, the place where women wash clothes, the spot where cattle wade, and, disturbingly, where chamber pots are emptied. You quickly learn never to drink downstream. Villagers empty their night soil human waste into ditches or the road itself. The term road is generous. Of course, these are mud paths, cut by cartwheels and boots, bordered by dung heaps. Rain doesn't cleanse them, it stirs them up. A shower, which might have once been a welcome refreshment to you, now becomes a swirling brown slurry that splashes up your legs as you try to walk. You make your way to the heart of the village, a small square surrounded by timber-framed buildings, some lean at precarious angles, patched together with wattle and daub. Their windows little more than holes with oiled parchment stretched across to let in light. The marketplace will open soon, and already the smell of it wafts ahead. Fish that is not fresh, meat that has seen too much sun, and herbs that do their best to mask the decay. A fishmonger greets you with a smile that reveals more gaps than teeth. His cart is lined with cod and eel, laid out over beds of wet straw. Flies cling to everything, including his face. He waves you over, proud of his wares. You step back, instinctively, the stench wrapping around you like a scarf. There is no refrigeration. What cannot be smoked or salted begins to rot the moment it's killed. And yet, people eat it. They have no choice. You turn from the fish stall and nearly step into a pile of horse dung. A boy with a wooden rake scoots it into the corner. But it's a losing battle. Horses, donkeys, oxen, they all walk the same paths as people. The result is a minefield of feces. You learn quickly to walk with your head down, scanning the road for traps. But it doesn't save your boots, which are now soaked and caked with things you'd rather not name. Somewhere nearby, someone is boiling animal fat. The smell is greasy, cloying, almost sweet, but not in a pleasant way. It is used to make tallow candles, which provide dim light and thick smoke. The process is messy and hot, and the cauldron bubbles with a surface film that makes your stomach turn. As you move past, you see the tanner's shed. You freeze. This is, perhaps, the worst of all. The process of tanning leather is essential in a world where shoes, belts, saddles, and armor must be made by hand. But it is also horrific. Skins are soaked in vats of urine and dog dung to loosen the hair, then scraped clean and treated with more urine and lime. The tanner himself is soaked through to the knees, his clothes stained, his skin permanently perfumed with foulness. He smiles as you pass. You nod, trying not to breathe. Behind a nearby hut, you hear coughing. A woman leans out of a window and empties a bucket of slop into the gutter. It's a mix of dishwater, food scraps, and possibly worse. It joins a small stream of muck that trails down the street, where chickens peck at it, unconcerned. A child sits barefoot nearby, playing with a stick in the sludge. No one seems alarmed. This is simply life. There are no privies. At least, not as you understand them. The richer households might have an outhouse, a wooden butt over a hole, but most use chamber pots, emptied each morning into the street. In the cities, the cry of Gardilou warns passers-by before the contents are flung from second-story windows. In the village, there is no such courtesy. You walk under eaves with caution. The village alehouse sits near the edge of the square. It, too, smells of sour beer, sweat, and unwashed bodies. The people inside gather for morning drink, often the only safe fluid to consume. Water is untrustworthy. Ale is weak but boiled. The scent of yeast and old wood surrounds you as you step inside. The floor is dirt, the benches sticky. You sit anyway. A woman passes you a mug. The ale is cloudy, slightly warm. You drink. It is bitter and thin, but better than thirst. She eyes you strangely. You realize, belatedly, that you have no money. You try to smile. She grunts and turns away. The people here are used to the smell. They do not notice what you do. Their noses are dulled, their senses trained by years of exposure. But for you, freshly dropped from a world of scented soaps and sterile bathrooms, it is overwhelming. The stink is not just physical, it is existential. It is a reminder of your fragility, your discomfort, your foreignness. Later in the day, the butcher begins his work. It is not a shop, not a clean table under glass. It is a block of wood in the open air, a hook hanging from a beam, and blood on the ground. The meat is hacked roughly. Bones crunch. Flies swarm. Offal is tossed into a bucket or fed to dogs. The butcher wipes his hands on his apron and hands a customer a dripping joint wrapped in cloth. The customer smiles. The village well is near the center. It is both vital and risky. Contamination is common. A dead rat in the well can sicken the entire village. But there is no other option. Women haul water in wooden buckets, balancing them on yokes across their shoulders. You try to help, but the weight surprises you. Your arms tremble. The bucket spills. They laugh. In the evening, the smell does not fade. Smoke from countless fires thickens the air. Every home burns wood or dung. The smoke is not vented. It pools in the rafters, seeps into clothes and clings to hair. Your eyes sting. You cough. You wonder how lungs endure a lifetime of this. Your clothes stink now, of sweat, smoke, animal filth, and tanner's air. There is no soap to fix this. You may rinse your tunic in the stream, but it will not help. The smell is part of you now. It marks you as one of them. As darkness falls, you return to your hut. The fire has gone out. The embers glow dimly, casting long shadows. You lie down, but the smell follows. It is in the straw, the walls, your skin. It is in the very air you breathe. You close your eyes. You have survived your second day, but not without holding your breath. Breakfast with the peasants. You wake to the clang of a ladle against a kettle. Morning light has barely crept into the corners of the peasant cottage. Yet the family is already in motion. The man of the house, Osric, pulls on a rough tunic and steps outside to check on the livestock. His wife, Margery, stirs something thick and gray in a cauldron that hangs above the hearth. The fire beneath it pops and smokes, sending a haze into the room and a burning itch into your eyes. You sit up from your bed of straw and wool scraps. Your back protests. Sleep was thin, broken by the scurrying of mice and the occasional draft that slipped through the walls. Your host offers you a nod. She doesn't speak much. There is no time for small talk. Mornings are for work. The smell of the pottage reaches your nose, not unpleasant, just earthy. It's a mixture of barley, onions, leeks, and whatever scraps were left over from the night before. This is not a meal prepared anew, but a stew that never ends, refreshed daily with additions and heated perpetually. It's called perpetual stew, and it's the heart of peasant sustenance. You are handed a wooden bowl and a dull spoon. You eat slowly. The texture is lumpy, the flavor bland, but it's warm and filling. Beside you, the children slurp eagerly, occasionally chewing on strips of black bread that are more crust than crumb. Margery dunks the bread into the stew to soften it. You follow suit. There is no meat today. There wasn't any yesterday either. Meat is rare for peasants, reserved for feast days or unexpected windfalls like a dead pig or leftover giblets from the manor. Most days, meals revolve around grain, root vegetables, and wild greens. If they're lucky, a hen might lay, or a fish might be caught. Outside, Osric returns with a pail of milk from their only cow. He pours it into a ceramic jug and sets it on the table. The children reach for it, but he stops them with a grunt. Margery ladles the milk carefully into mugs, only a little for each. It must last the week. You notice the milk has flecks floating in it and smells a little sour. But no one seems bothered. It's normal. The family eats in near silence, broken only by the clink of spoon against bowl and the occasional reminder from Margery to eat slower. Time is precious. Once the food is eaten, the real labor begins. The youngest children are sent to collect firewood and gather eggs. if any. The older boy takes a spade and heads to the field. Osric nods to you an invitation to join him. You step outside, bowl in hand, and take in the morning. The sun is still low, casting long shadows across the frost-laced ground. Smoke rises from chimneys across the village. Chickens scurry at your feet. A dog barks in the distance. You follow Osric past the sty, where a lone pig snuffles in the mud, to the edge of his plot. This is the strip field, long, narrow, and shared with neighbors. Each peasant has a few strips to tend, and they rotate crops to avoid exhausting the soil. Osric's wife told you last night that this year their grain yield was poor. Too much rain early on, and then none when they needed it. Hunger stalks them quietly. Osric hands you a hoe. He demonstrates how to loosen the soil. You copy him. It's harder than it looks. The ground is stiff, the stones cruel, and the wind unforgiving. You bend, pull, and repeat. Minutes feel like hours. After some time, Osric signals a break. You both sit on the edge of the field. He pulls out a cloth-wrapped bundle. More bread. Harder than ever. And a single apple that has seen better days. He offers you half. You accept. The bread hurts your teeth, but you chew slowly. He speaks. Finally, a low voice, thick with accent. He tells you of his father, who once farmed the same land, and his grandfather before that. There's pride in his words, but also resignation. This is life. It does not change. Back at the cottage, Margery prepares for midday chores. She carries linens to the stream for washing, straps a toddler to her back, and sets out with a bundle. You offer to help. She hesitates but nods. At the stream, she kneels on the stones and plunges the fabrics into the cold water. Her hands are red within minutes. She scrubs with soap made from lye and ashes. It smells acrid. The stream flows sluggishly around her. You mimic her movements. Awkwardly. She doesn't correct you. She's too busy. When the washing is done, she wrings the cloths with strength that surprises you and packs them into a basket. The toddler hasn't made a sound. He sleeps, cheek pressed to her shoulder. You carry the basket. On the way back, she points to herbs growing wild. She names them: yarrow, plantain, comfrey. Healing herbs. Every peasant woman knows them. She collects a few. Her husband has a cough, and she fears the winter will make it worse. Back at home, the stew pot is stoked again. More barley, a handful of greens, a pinch of dried herbs. The children return with twigs, and Margery sends them to fetch water. You sit and stir the pot. The fire warms your legs. You begin to understand. In this world, eating is surviving, and every meal is a small miracle. As dusk approaches, the family prepares for vespers at the chapel. Even peasants, even tired ones, observe the rhythms of the church. You follow them through the village to a small wooden structure, where others are gathering. There are no pews, no candles, only benches and a crude cross. A monk leads the prayer in Latin. You don't understand the words, but the cadence is soothing. Back at the cottage, there's no supper, only another bowl of stew and the same hard bread. You eat without complaint. You are learning. That night, you lie down in the straw again. Your muscles ache. Your hands are blistered, and your stomach is only half full. But you have made it through another day. You have eaten as they do. You have worked as they must. And for now, that is enough. A visit from the Lord's steward. You awaken to the uneasy silence of the household. There is no clang of iron, no cluck of chickens, no creak of the spinning wheel. Something hangs in the air tension. Margery is already upright, adjusting the sleeves of her only good tunic. Brushing off invisible dust, Osric paces near the door, his brow furrowed, eyes darting to the horizon as though awaiting a storm. The steward comes today, Margery murmurs, not looking at you. The words land like a hammer. In medieval society, the Lord may be absent off at court, at war, or at one of his other manors, but his reach remains ever present through his steward. The steward is the Lord's eyes, his voice, his hand. He administers the domain, oversees rents, enforces fines, and ensures all obligations are met. For peasants, his visit means scrutiny, dues, and often fear. By midday, the village square is bustling. Everyone has come, every villain, cotar, and free tenant, even the widows and orphans. They gather not for joy, but necessity. The steward's visit is not a festival, but an audit. Wooden carts clatter into place, bringing ledgers, baskets of eggs, bundles of wool, and earthenware jugs filled with ale and cider payments in kind. You follow Osric to the square. He brings a hen and a sack of barley, his required dues. Behind him, his son carries a tattered scroll, the record of Osric's holdings, debts, and duties. Every family keeps such a record, not because they choose to, but because the steward demands it. The steward arrives on horseback. He is clad in fine wool, his boots polished, his face shaven. Behind him ride 2 bailiffs and a clerk with ink-stained fingers. The steward dismounts slowly, nodding to no one, as though the air alone greeted him. He carries a long staff and a leather-bound ledger, the Book of Holdings. He begins the roll call, one by one. Villagers step forward. Names are called. Debts are read aloud. Fines are announced. If a family failed to provide a piglet last Michaelmas, it is noted. If a widow's fence encroached on the commons, she is fined. If a young man has not yet paid his entry fee for his inheritance, he is warned. The steward's voice is dry and unwavering. The clerk scratches notes with a quill. The bailiffs watch. When Osric's name is called, he steps forward with his hat in hand. The steward does not greet him, only flips pages, 2 strips of Ryefield, One ox borrowed from Domain last season. One cart repaired with Lord's timber. One daughter unmarried beyond 15 years. Osric nods. The steward continues. Ode. 1 hen. 1 sack barley. 2 days' labor for autumn ditching. 1 groat. Osric offers the hen, which squawks, and the barley, which is inspected. The steward motions to the bailiff. Groat, he asks. Osric hesitates. He does not have it. Margery steps forward, drawing a small pouch from her apron. She unties it with trembling fingers and spills the coins into her palm. They glint faintly. She counts 1, 2, 3 farthings. Not enough. The steward frowns. Half due. Osric bows his head. The rest after harvest. The steward pauses, then nods. Late fee applies. Margery flinches. It is over quickly, and they step aside. Relief washes over them like rain. Others are not so lucky. A man is fined for brewing ale without a license. A woman is told she must remarry or forfeit her cottage. A boy is summoned for failing to work the Lord's oxen. Justice here is not blind. It is recorded, taxed, and enforced. You watch as disputes are settled. 2 men argue over a fallen tree's ownership. A woman claims her neighbor stole her geese. The steward listens, consults witnesses, and issues judgment. There is no appeal. His word is law. The bailiffs nod and move on. At midday, the steward dines alone beneath the linden tree. A cloth is spread, trenchers laid, meat and wine served. The villagers eat nearby, but separately bread, cold turnips, and weak ale. You sit beside Osric's children. They chew quietly, eyes fixed on the steward's silver cup. After the meal comes the muster. Men between 15 and 60 are required to present themselves with arms such as they may have. A rusted axe, a dented helm, a sharpened stick. The steward inspects them. Should war come, they will be summoned. You are handed a spear rough, splintered, but sharp. You stand among the others. The steward nods. You pass. Later, the steward tours the fields. He inspects the manor barn, the grist mill, the fish ponds. He notes the crumbling walls near the south pasture and orders repairs. He points to the reeve, the elected peasant foreman, and commands it done before winter. At sunset, the steward mounts his horse. He gives no farewells. The bailiffs gather their documents. The clerk tucks away the book of holdings. And then they are gone. The village exhales. That night, Osric drinks 2 mugs of cider. Margery says little. The children sleep early. You sit by the fire, the heat warm against your face, and consider the cost of 1 day's visit. Coins, eggs, time, dignity. It is not just survival that is hard here. It is the constant toll extracted by power. You lie back on your straw mat. You survived another day. but you are beginning to understand why you wouldn't last many more. The church and the tithe. The church bell tolls at dawn, not the melodious chime of modern clocks, but a heavy, rusting clamor that rolls through the mist-soaked village like a divine summons. Its echo dances through timber beams, fields glistening with dew, and the smoke trails rising from every cottage roof. No one sleeps through it, not even you. On the 5th day, you wake to find Osric already gone, and Margery smoothing the children's hair with spit and thumb, whispering sternly about manners. Even the youngest wears their cleanest, though still patched tunic. It is Sunday, and Sunday belongs to God. The church stands apart from the village, on a slight rise, surrounded by uneven gravestones and a lichen-blotched stone wall. It is the oldest building in the area, older even than memory. Moss and ivy creep along its gray walls. The squat bell tower leans slightly, as though weary from centuries of sermons. Inside, it is cold, damp, and dim. Narrow windows let in thin shards of dusty light. There is no glass, only slits to catch the rising sun and cast it like holy fire upon the altar. The villagers enter quietly. The men remove their hats. The women cover their hair. Children are nudged into silence. The priest, Father Edric, waits near the altar in a faded robe that smells faintly of wax and mold. His voice is measured, Latin-infused, his eyes shrewd despite his gentle tone. He knows everyone. He knows what they owe. Mass begins. You kneel on a cold stone floor. There are no pews. The scent of tallow candles thickens the air. Latin prayers murmur across the chamber. More chant than speech. You don't understand the words, but the rhythm lulls you. Hands clasped, head bowed. Time becomes suspended. Then comes the tithe, 1/10 of all income. Crops, or goods, owed to the church. No one is exempt. Today, families bring handfuls of barley, wheels of hard cheese, lengths of homespun wool, a clutch of eggs. The offerings are placed before the altar, tokens of devotion. Yes, but also necessity. The church feeds the poor, tends the sick, repairs the roof. But not all tithes go to charity. Much is stored. Some is sold, and some makes its way up the ecclesiastical ladder. Margery nudges you. You follow her outside, where the church granary looms a large timbered structure with thick walls and an iron lock. A lay brother with a ledger greets you. He notes the offering. Margery hands over a small crock of butter and a bundle of herbs. She curtsies. The brother says nothing but nods. You watch as others file past. The poorer families bring less, sometimes only a single root vegetable or a handful of nettle, but they come all the same. To skip the tithe is to risk censure, shaming, or even excommunication. After Mass, the villagers linger outside. This is their only respite from labor all week, a time to trade news, settle disputes, and exchange gossip. Children chase chickens between graves. A man sharpens his scythe while chatting. Two women argue about a borrowed pan. Father Edric listens from a distance. You walk the graveyard. The stones bear no names, just symbols worn down by wind and rain. A cross, a sword, a circle. The dates are unfamiliar. Life is short here, and death familiar. You pass a tiny mound, freshly dug, with no marker. A child. Perhaps. There are no flowers. Later, you join the family for a meal of barley porridge, sweetened with honey. It is a feast compared to yesterday. Osric speaks more today. Church has softened him. He tells a tale of Saint Cuthbert, whose staff grew into a tree. Margery corrects him gently. The children listen, wide-eyed. Then comes the visit. Father Edric appears at the door, his robe billowing slightly in the breeze. Osric bows and invites him in. The priest inspects the hearth, asks about the family's health, blesses the new lamb. Then he sits. Margery offers him cider. He speaks kindly, but his eyes miss nothing. He inquires after Osric's debts, mentions the steward, asks about the oldest daughter's courtship. Gently, always gently, he reminds them of their duties, not just to the Lord, but to the church. When he leaves, the house feels smaller. That evening, the chapel bell rings again. Vespers. You return. The candlelight is low. The prayers are shorter. There is a stillness that wraps around you like a blanket. You think of your own world, its noise, its haste, its brightness, and suddenly, this quiet feels heavier, more permanent. You leave the church under a starlit sky. No lantern, no torches, only the pale light of the moon and the silence of fields. You survived another day, but not without offering your due to God. A sick day in the village. It begins with a cough, a sharp, dry sound that echoes from Osric's side of the cottage before the sun has risen. You stir from your pallet, the straw mat beneath you stiff and itchy, and glance toward the hearth. The embers are low. The air is thick with last night's smoke. Another cough follows, then a wheeze. Margery is already kneeling beside Osric, her hand on his forehead. Her face is drawn, her lips pressed into a tight line. She does not panic, but she moves quickly. She fetches a cloth and dampens it with rainwater collected in the basin outside. Osric pushes her hand away, muttering about being fine. But the flush on his cheeks says otherwise. In medieval times, illness is not rare, it is routine. But it is feared. A cough can mean anything. A cold, a fever, a wasting sickness. And there are no doctors here. Only remedies passed down by midwives and whispers from the woods. Margery sends her youngest to fetch Widow Ellen. Widow Ellen is not truly a healer, nor is she a witch, but she knows herbs, poultices, and the signs of death. She arrives with a sack of leaves and a carved wooden spoon. She listens to Osric's chest, sniffs his breath, examines the color of his nails. Her verdict is simple. He must stay warm. She prepares a tea of yarrow and elderflower. It smells bitter, almost like mold. Osric drinks reluctantly. Then she makes a paste of mustard and onion and smears it onto a cloth, which he places on his chest. He groans. Outside, the village murmurs. Illness spreads quickly. People avoid the house, speaking in low voices near the well. Margery nods toward you. Help me gather wood. You do. The woods are damp. Every stick is soaked. But you manage to find some dry branches near the base of an old oak. When you return, the fire is rekindled. The cottage is stifling now, but Margery insists it must stay that way. The fever needs sweat. Osric lies wrapped in every blanket the family owns. He shivers, then burns. The children sit silently in the corner, unsure whether to speak. Margery boils broth. She adds roots, a bone, and a clove of garlic. The smell fills the room. She lifts spoonfuls to Osric's lips. He drinks some, coughs, and then sleeps. You volunteer to fetch water from the stream. On the path, you pass Widow Ellen again. She gives you a nod, then slips silently into another cottage. Another cough, another worry. At the stream, you kneel and dip the bucket. The water is cold and clean, but your hands go numb. You think of your world sterile, filtered, sanitized, and realize just how vulnerable life here is. Back at the cottage, the children need tending. The eldest boy chops wood. The youngest cries with hunger. Margery hands you a task. Grind dried herbs into powder. You do so with a stone and bowl. It takes nearly an hour. She mixes it with honey and gives it to Osric. He grimaces but swallows. The day passes in quiet panic. The air is still. The village avoids your cottage. Margery refuses to leave his side. You fetch, stir, clean, and wait. By evening, Osric stirs and speaks. Only a word or two, but his fever has broken. Margery weeps silently. Widow Ellen returns and nods with approval. Let him rest. You collapse onto your mat. You've survived a sick day, but the fear remains. Illness is always just a breath away. Laundry, lice, and latrines. The seventh day begins not with sunlight or bird song, but with scratching. You hear it before you open your eyes. The soft but insistent scrape of fingers against skin, a low murmur of discomfort, and the rustle of worn linens. The air is heavy with the scent of damp straw, wood smoke, and something sour beneath it all. You stretch, groggy, only to recoil as your scalp itches with an intensity you've never known. Leite, they're not a threat from a school nurse's letter or a cartoon warning. Here, they are constant companions. Lice liven your hair, your seams, your bedding. Everyone has them. Even the reeve, even the priest. The difference is not whether you're infested, but how severely. Margery, with her practical wisdom and finger-thick braid, is already heating water in a battered iron cauldron. Beside it, a tin bowl holds crushed herbs, lavender, tansy, wormwood, her attempt at a lice rinse. She doesn't grimace at your scratching. She only says, "You'll get used to it." There is no bathhouse in the village, no soap that smells like flowers, no warm towels. Washing is a seasonal task, a necessity when clothes stiffen from sweat and grime. Today is one of those rare days, a village-wide washing. You follow Margery and the older children down to the river. Each of you carries a bundle of clothes tied in a rag or balanced in a woven basket. The riverbank is already dotted with villagers, mostly women, sleeves rolled, skirts hitched, ankles caked with mud. Buckets splash, voices call across the current. Flat stones are dragged from the shallows, makeshift washboards. The process is punishing. First, garments are soaked, then scrubbed with sand or ashes. Next comes the beating clothes slammed against stone to drive out dirt. Finally, rinsed in the icy current. There are no detergents, no gentle cycles, just raw muscle and cold water. Margery hands you a shirt crusted with sweat. "Scrub hard," she says, "and don't let it float off." You kneel at the river's edge and work. Your knuckles sting. The cold burn. The grit grinds into your skin. A pair of women nearby share gossip between slaps of tunics on stone whose cow went dry. Who might be with child. A toddler falls in the shallows and shrieks. No one panics. He's pulled out, muddy and wailing, and set beside a pile of steaming clothes. Later, garments are laid across shrubs and stones to dry. The wind is the only dryer, and it's fickle. Latrines are next. Behind each home lies a simple hole, a pit dug and repurposed, season after season. Some families build a wooden seat above it. Others squat directly. There is no privacy, no flush, no running water. Waste is covered with straw, or soil, or simply left to rot. The stench is unholy. Twice a year, the village pit is emptied and spread over the fields. Human waste is fertilizer. You don't forget this when you eat the turnips. Today, Osric instructs his sons to dig a new latrine. The old one is caving in. You're given a spade and shown where to dig. The earth is wet and uncooperative. The stench grows worse with every inch. By noon, you smell like a pigsty. Your hands are blistered. Your back aches. But the hole is done. Lunch is eaten in silence. Bread, onion, weak ale. You sit in the corner of the cottage, sipping, scratching, trying not to think of lice or latrines. That afternoon, a combing circle begins. The women gather in the clearing with their children, one by one. They comb through each other's hair, metal or bone combs, carved with care, are dragged through locks in slow, methodical walls. Lice are pinched between fingernails or crushed with stones. Margery invites you to sit. She combs your hair with a mother's touch. She finds 3 lice in the first minute. You squirm, but she holds your shoulder, still your head. She whispers, "They love a restless one." When it's your turn to comb hers, you feel a pang of humility. Her hair is long, coarsened by wind and time, but she bears it without complaint. The children chatter nearby, trading jokes and stories as if this were just another part of life. And it is. As evening falls, you walk back to the cottage with hair cleaner, clothes stiff with river water, and a dull throb in your bones. Osric lights a pipe. The smoke curls into the thatch. Margery hums a lullaby while sewing a patch onto a tunic. The air is quiet. You lie down, itching less, smelling worse, but somehow grateful. You survived the day of lice, laundry, and latrines. But would you survive it again tomorrow? The market day. Dawn breaks earlier than usual on market day, its pale light creeping over thatched roofs and narrow lanes like a silent promise. The villagers are already stirring, even the roosters, sensing the shift in routine, crow with a kind of nervous urgency. Market day is not just a chance to trade goods. It is a window to the outside world. The rare moment when news, strangers, and strange scents all converge. Margery rouses you before the first bell. Her hands are steady as she prepares the baskets. One filled with eggs wrapped in straw, another with small cheeses rubbed with ash, and a final one containing rough-woven cloth and bundles of dried herbs. Every item has been cleaned, straightened, and packed with care. These are not offerings, they are negotiations. Osric inspects the old cart, its wooden wheels banded in iron, and checks the harness on the family's lone ox. The beast moves slowly, as though fully aware of its burden. The children are not coming. Market day is business, not play. You are given a sack of walnuts to carry and told not to trade unless Margery says so. She hands you a pouch of coins. "If I drop, you run," she says with half a smile. You nod, uncertain whether she's joking. The road to market winds through wood and field, past distant farmsteads and patches of grazing sheep. The journey takes over an hour. Other carts join the path. You see villagers you don't know, faces from outlying hamlets. Some nod, others stare as you near the market town. The sound grows voices, hoofbeats, iron on stone. The town gate is open, but guarded. Two men in padded tunics with cudgels at their belts eye each cart, asking for names and wares. One sniffs the cheese. Another pokes a sack of beans. You pass inspection. Within the walls, the town is a world apart. Streets bustle with life. Merchants bark prices. Children dart between stalls. Foreign smells fish. Spices, tanned leather hang in the air. The square is packed. Canvas awnings flutter above carts laden with goods. Bright dyes splash across bolts of cloth. Pigs squeal. A juggler tosses knives. Margery moves like a general. She heads straight for the usual stall, A wooden table, manned by a woman named Anselma, with a face like creased parchment and eyes like razors. They barter in low tones. Margery trades 3 cheeses and a bundle of thyme for 2 lengths of ribbon, a jar of lamp oil, and news from the south. You're sent to exchange walnuts for barley flour. You find the miller's daughter and show your goods. She tastes 1 walnut, nods, and scoops flour into your sack. Tell your mistress she owes me a song next time. Nearby, a fishmonger yells about salted eel. A scribe offers letters for hire. A monk preaches in Latin from atop a barrel. No one listens. Osric buys a rusty horseshoe. Margery trades for a piece of soap. You watch as a man sells live leeches, kept wriggling in a jar of pond water. Good for humors, he claims. You pause at a spice seller's booth. Tiny glass jars hold powders of deep reds, yellows, and browns. The scents are overwhelming clove, nutmeg, cumin. Prices are astronomical. These are luxuries, not groceries. At midday, you gather on the edge of the square and eat cold bread and cheese. A troupe of players begins a tale about a prince turned to stone. The crowd laughs. A pickpocket laughs too, until he's caught and beaten. Later, Margery visits the Wool Guild Hall to argue over a piece of weaving she claims was underpaid. You stay outside. Osric helps a stranger lift a barrel and is paid in a mug of cider. You sip from it when no one's looking. The sky darkens by late afternoon. The bells toll again 3 times, signaling the day's end. Sellers begin to pack. Bargains are struck quickly. A last wheel of cheese is bartered for a skein of blue thread. As you leave the town gate, Margery tallies the coins and counts the trades. Not the best market, she says, but not the worst. You walk home with tired feet and a head full of color. The ox plods steadily, the cart groaning under its diminished load. By dusk, you return to the village. The children rush to meet you, excited for ribbon, soap, and news. You collapse onto your mat, body sore, mind spinning. You survived market day, but you know now, commerce is no less exhausting than labor, and your coins are never enough. Feast days and fasting. The morning mist hangs low over the village green, curling around the edges of thatched roofs and blanketing the fields in a silvery hush. There is a strange quiet in the air, not the usual hush of fear or work, but a silence of reverence. Today is a feast day. Not every day in the medieval calendar is grueling toil and ache. Interspersed among the plowing, threshing, laundering, and trading are days marked by the church for rest, prayer, and celebration or penance. Today is one of the former, the feast of Saint Brigid, patroness of fertility, harvest, and the hearth. The bell from the distant church tower tolls once, twice, thrice, then 7 times in a slower rhythm. You stir from your sleeping mat to find Margery already up, her best smock laid over the chair by the fire. It's been brushed, mended, and bless it with rosemary. The children are unusually quiet, hands scrubbed, faces clean, hair braided. Even Osric wears a cleaner tunic. You are expected to do the same. No rags today. You borrow a clean shirt and comb your hair. A warm mash of oats and apples awaits at the hearth, sweetened. Today, with a sliver of honeycomb. The walk to the church is long and cold. The path winds through muddy fields, passing neighbors similarly dressed in their best. The church, made of gray stone and moss-covered, looms on the hill like a watchful guardian. Smoke curls from its chimneys. Inside, the air is heavy with incense. Mass begins with Gregorian chants, low and melodic, echoing against the arches. Latin words pass over you like water, meaningless yet somehow moving. The priest lifts the chalice. Children fidget. An old man coughs. But the ritual continues unbroken. You kneel. You stand. You chant. You listen to the sermon, a long-winded tale of St. Bridget's miracles, her cloak spreading across fields, her fire that never dies, her kindness to beggars. You glance around, some weep, others nod off. No one dares speak. After Mass, the feast begins, but not at church. It's a communal celebration held in the green. Long trestle tables are erected. Barley bread, dried fruit, smoked meat, pickled eggs, and even small cakes appear. Each family contributes what they can. Osric brings a wheel of hard cheese. Margery offers stewed cabbage with bacon. Music plays pipes and drums. A lute with a missing string. Children dance. The reeve offers a toast. The steward, representing the absent Lord, watches with crossed arms. You taste things you've not had all week, roasted apples, ale warmed with cloves, a tart made with wild berries. The flavors are bold and comforting. Laughter bubbles around you. You feel, for once, not just a visitor, but a part of something enduring. But not all feast days are feasts. 3 days later, Lent begins. The shift is immediate. Gone is the laughter, the warmth, the indulgence. The church demands abstinence. No meat, no dairy, no pleasure. Meals are gruel, sometimes dried peas, occasionally stale bread with garlic rubbed over it. Margery takes it seriously. She fasts during the day, breaking only after sunset. Even the children eat less. You struggle to adjust. Hunger gnaws at you. You dream of cakes and stews. On the 4th day of Lent, a beggar arrives in the village. He is thin, robed in tatters, with hollow eyes. The villagers are wary. Some offer him a heel of bread. Osric gives him a place to sit near the fire. He speaks in riddles, half psalm, half warning, feast and famine. He says, "Our sisters, one never walks far behind the other." During Lent, church attendance is mandatory. You go daily. The sermons are somber. The chants are slow. The priest warns of sin, of fire, of eternal want. Guilt settles on your shoulders like a woolen cloak soaked in rain. You learn that even celebration carries debt in this world. Every joy must be balanced. Every indulgence must be repaid in hunger, silence, penance. But it is not all bleak. On Sundays, a small reprieve is allowed. Margery bakes flat cakes without butter. Osric tells stories by candlelight. The children giggle beneath patched blankets. Feast days and fasting are the rhythms of this life unseen drums that guide the hearts and hands of the people. You sway between them, unsure whether you crave the joy more than you fear the cost. But you endure, and that, perhaps, is the point. You would not last a day in medieval times, they say, yet here you are 9 days in. Fire, frost, and famine. The day begins not with the crow of the rooster, but with silence. A strange, expectant hush fills the cottage, broken only by the crackle of frost shifting along the edges of the window frame. When you pull back your blanket, the air bites sharp and unforgiving. Your breath curls in visible plumes above your face. Winter has arrived, not with snow, but with hunger. In medieval life, winter is not merely a season, it is a test. A slow, grinding gauntlet through scarcity, cold, and stillness. Even before the sun has risen, Margery is awake, stoking the coals under the hearth's ash. The fire has not died completely, but it whimpers now, needing coaxing. Osric emerges from the loft with a limp in his step, an old injury worsened by the cold. The children stay buried in furs, too cold to play. No birds sing outside. The ground, once muddy and loud with life, now lies hard and pale beneath a layer of rime. Breakfast is a struggle. The last of the onions has sprouted. The bread is dry and crumbly. No butter, no milk. The cow's teats are dry from the chill, and the hens no longer lay. Margery serves a porridge thinned with water. It is hot, at least. The first chore of the day is wood gathering. Fuel is life. Without it, there is no fire, no warmth, no hot food. But wood is scarce, and what's left is wet or brittle. You and Osric head to the forest's edge. Trees have long since been picked clean, so you scavenge twigs, branches, and fallen limbs. Your fingers freeze inside your gloves. The air hurts your throat. Breathing deeply makes your ribs ache. But you continue, because stopping means freezing. Later, you help carry the bundles back to the cottage. Your arms trembling, you are rewarded with a thicker bowl of stew, a rare portion. Thanks to a carrot and half a parsnip found hidden beneath the dirt floor of the root cellar. By midday, your face is raw from wind. Margery boils water for washing clothes not out of luxury, but necessity. Fleas thrive in warmth, and without washing, they multiply even in the cold. You scrub tunics stiff with dried sweat. The steam from the pot burns your fingers, but the warmth is welcome. That evening, Osric returns from the Lord's manor with grim news. The harvest levy was short. The tithe due to the Lord will leave little for the villagers. The steward took what was owed in grain and left warnings for spring. Margery's jaw sets. We will stretch what we have, she says. Stretching means boiling bones until they give up their last whispers of flavor. It means roasting beets 3 days in a row. It means making bread from acorn flour and moss. On the 4th night of frost, a fire breaks out in a neighboring cottage. Sparks, fanned by wind, catch dry thatch like tinder. The village forms a bucket line, pulling water from the frozen trough. You pass the pail with blistered hands, numb and cracked. The family survives, but the cottage is lost. They move in with Osric and Margery, 5 people in a space built for 3. Privacy is gone, so is quiet. But no one is turned away. In the dead of winter, you understand community differently. It is not a matter of liking your neighbors. It is a matter of not dying alone. Weeks pass. The sun grows timid. Snow arrives one night, soft and suffocating. Travel stops. Church services are shorter. The priest warns of penance, of how suffering brings grace. Few have the strength to argue. Children's cheeks hollow. Coughs rattle in the night. You lose track of the days. One afternoon, you bury a child, Margery's niece. The ground is too hard, so you dig a shallow grave and pile stones on top. The priest mutters a blessing through his scarf. Then, famine comes in full. The salted meat is gone. The grain bins echo. People eat bark, chew leather. You try to eat a boiled shoe strap. It makes you sick. Osric talks in his sleep. Margery stops smiling. One morning, a man is found dead in his bed, arms wrapped around an empty bread sack. No one takes his boots. Not yet. Then, one morning, there's a smell earthy and sharp. Garlic. Margery found a sprout beneath the floor. You all share it. She mashes it with salt and water, spreads it on rye crusts. It is the best thing you've eaten in weeks. That night, you sleep closer to the fire. Osric tells a story about a winter when wolves came down from the mountains. No one laughs. You dream of spring, of sun, of berries. When you wake, your lips are chapped, but the frost on the windows is lighter. A bird sings. The first sign of mercy. You survived fire, frost, and famine, but only just. And tomorrow, the wheel turns again. Justice and punishment. The stillness of the morning does not soothe. There is tension in the air, thick as chimney soot. The village wakes slowly under a gray sky, one that does not promise storm or sun, only the muted ache of a day holding its breath. Word has spread quietly, passed in whispers between neighbors, behind hands and inside doorways. A crime has been committed, and today there will be judgment. In medieval times, justice is not a matter of laws and lawyers as we know them now. It is a spectacle, a warning, and a ritual of fear. It is divine order enforced through pain. You rise early, roused by Margery's sharp voice. The reeve will summon everyone, she says. We must show our faces. You do not yet know what the crime is. Rumors ripple like wind over barley. A stolen loaf, a missing tool, a quarrel that turned bloody. But the truth is never told outright. The truth arrives in the village square, where the bailiff mounts a barrel and unfurls the accusation. It is theft. From the Lord's granary, 3 sacks of barley. Gone. The steward's books show it. His nose shows it too, sniffing out guilt like a hound. And the accused is Tom, the carpenter's apprentice, a boy no older than you. He stands with wrists bound in rope, lips pale and quivering. He does not deny it, nor does he cry. The steward reads the charge, a long, rhythmic recitation meant more for show than understanding. Tom stole food, in winter, from the Lord's reserve. A grave offense. The villagers watch in silence. Some glance at the ground. Others shake their heads. The carpenter stands to the side, arms folded, expressionless. He does not speak for his apprentice. The punishment must fit the crime. The steward says, the options are laid out. The stocks, public whipping, or removal of the offending hand. A murmur runs through the crowd. Osric's jaw clenches. Margery says nothing. In the end, the steward opts for the stocks. 3 days. Bread and water only, rain or shine. A show of mercy, or so he claims. The stocks are not metaphor. They are rough wood, splintered, smelling of rot and blood. Tom is marched to the edge of the green and locked in. His neck and wrists jut through the holes, trapped like a beast. He is not allowed to lie down, nor shield his face. Children throw pebbles. A woman spits. Justice, they say. But punishment is not always judicial. It lurks in corners, behind barns and fences. Later that afternoon, a woman is dragged before the reeve. She is accused of bewitching a cow that no longer gives milk. Her eyes are sharp, her clothes too fine for her station. She had spoken Latin in church. They whisper. She grows herbs not found in the forest. The reeve questions her. She denies the charge. Calmly, too calmly. Her fingers do not tremble. The priest is summoned. He pronounces her suspect, but not yet damned. She is taken to the chapel for confinement. The church will decide. You ask Margery later, in private, whether she believes the woman is a witch. No, she says. But it doesn't matter. Punishment comes in many forms. Even gossip is a kind of justice. A boy who curses too loudly finds himself with his tunic tied in knots. A girl who flirts too freely receives no bread when she begs. A man who cheats at market is denied entry next week. The lash of the tongue is invisible but deep. Some crimes are not punished at all, not publicly. A drunkard who stumbles home with blood on his hands may sleep peacefully if no one sees. A noble who strikes a villager walks free. If his purse is heavy, justice is not blind. It sees coin. One evening, you hear a confession whispered in the dark. A girl you know. Sarah stole a rosary from the chapel. She buried it beneath her bed. I wanted to feel holy, she says. She returns it the next day. The priest does not notice. No one speaks of it again, but fear lingers. Not all are so lucky. At the end of Tom's punishment, his wrists are raw and bruised. He cannot straighten his back. He walks like a man twice his age, but he is alive. He is fed, and the lesson, it seems, is learned. The woman accused of witchcraft is released a week later. The priest declares her innocent after she recites all of Psalm 91 without error. She smiles as she walks away, but her house is later found burned. No one saw who did it. The reeve says it must have been lightning. You begin to understand. Justice is not only what is done, but what is allowed. It lives in the space between law and silence. It thrives where fear is louder than reason. And in this place, you would not last a day, not if you erred, not if you questioned, not if you stood out, but you survive another day, and the wheel turns again. A wedding and a funeral. Spring's arrival in the medieval countryside is not marked by grand declarations or fanfares, but by the gentle, creeping changes that unfurl across hedgerows and fields. Buds push forth from bare branches, timid and tentative. The ground softens underfoot, no longer frozen, but damp and fragrant with earth. The air carries a kind of sacred warmth, thin and flickering, yet unmistakably hopeful. Margery is the first to declare it. Standing in the doorway of the cottage one morning, she inhales deeply and says, with a tone half whisper, half prayer, "It is the season for marriages." Indeed, it is. As the frost recedes and the sun begins to linger, thoughts of fertility awaken not only in the fields, but in the hearts of villagers. A wedding is set. Edric, the thatcher's eldest son, and Anne, a weaver's daughter with flaxen hair and silent resolve, are to be joined under the eyes of God, the priest, and every whispering mouth in the village. Preparations begin not with banners or bands, but with barter. Margery swaps dried elderberries for a scrap of ribbon. Osric contributes a small sack of flour, a precious offering from the winter stockpile. Neighbors donate whatever they can, bits of cloth, sprigs of rosemary, a joint of salted pork. Even the blacksmith polishes a dented goblet, which he insists has seen the hands of saints. The chapel is cleaned, its wooden benches scrubbed, its stone altar draped in linen embroidered by candlelight. Children gather early flowers, primroses and violets, and press them into garlands. Bees reappear, lambs bleat. The sky is slow to anger. The bride wears a borrowed dress, ivory, once, though now the color of soft cream with faint stains of past wear. Her shoes are patched with hide. Her hands tremble slightly as she laces the bodice. Margery braids her hair. Not too tightly. Anne whispers, "I want to feel the wind." The groom arrives with a procession of laughter. Edric, lean and strong, walks proudly beneath a carved branch held aloft by his brothers. A goat follows. Bedecked in blue ribbon, the villagers trail behind, humming, chattering, some holding handfuls of grain, others flasks of weak cider. The ceremony is held just before noon. Bells chime once, twice. The priest recites blessings in Latin that none understand, but all find comforting. The couple kneels. Their hands are bound with a red cord, knotted thrice. Their eyes never leave each other. "You are wed by the wheel," the priest says. "May your plow never rust, your hearth never die." They kiss. Grain rains from above. A shout erupts, a mix of joy and relief. The bride smiles. The groom bows, and the feast begins. The green is transformed. Tables of uneven height are spread with what food can be spared. Trenchers of bread, pottage with onions and wild herbs, roasted turnips, and rabbit stew. There is cheese, white and crumbly, and honeycomb passed hand to hand. Cider is poured. A cask of ale is tapped with ceremony. Songs erupt. The fiddler, half blind, plucks a lively tune. Children chase chickens. A dancing line forms, weaving between tables. Led by Osric, drunk by his second cup, Margery laughs. For the first time in months, you see her without worry on her brow. There is warmth, laughter, communion, yet not far from the cheer, another event unfolds. Old Jory, the swineherd, has passed. In the early morning hours, while the dew still slept on leaves, his nephew found him seated by the hearth, arms folded, eyes closed. A peaceful death. He had not spoken of pain, nor sought the priest, but he had not risen to feed the pigs, and that was sign enough. The news spread slowly, in glances and gestures. No one dares interrupt a wedding, but grief is patient. It waits its turn as the sun begins to sink and shadows stretch across the green. The laughter softens. People begin to remember. The village bell tolls once long and slow. Then again, a funeral is set for the morrow. Dawn rises gray. Mist clings to rooftops like morning veils. The churchyard is quiet, save for the sound of shovels. Osric and two others dig the grave. The earth is heavy with spring melt. Worms stir. Jory is laid in a simple coffin planks, nailed with reverence. His body wrapped in wool, rosemary tucked into his hands. The priest recites prayers not from parchment, but memory. He was, after all, a familiar soul. The procession is brief. A line of muddy boots, red eyes, hands clasped. The choir is a single voice. A woman sings a psalm in faltering tones. When the earth is placed over him, A child begins to cry. No one hushes her. Later that day, Anne and Edric depart the village on borrowed ponies, bound for her cousin's holding. They carry bread, cheese, and blessings. Behind them, Jory's pigs root about in the dirt, leaderless. A boy is tasked with watching them. Life, as it always does, begins again. You sit that evening with Margery by the fire. She holds a mug of watered cider and says softly, "2 passages in one day, one to new life, the other to next." You nod. Outside, the stars appear timidly. The moon is a soft blur. Somewhere, a nightjar calls. You close your eyes, and the wheel turns again. War rumors and wandering soldiers. The days after the funeral and wedding seem unusually quiet, as if the earth itself had drawn in a breath and chosen to hold it. The livestock graze lazily. The children keep their voices low. Even the blacksmith hammers with less fervor. But there is something in the air, something not yet named. A tension like a tight string that no one wants to pluck. It begins, as many stories do, with a stranger. He arrives at dusk, clothed in dust and silence, with a limp in one leg and a dagger hidden beneath his cloak. His eyes dart at every sound. Margery spots him first, crouched near the edge of the village field, eating what looks like raw turnip with shaking hands. She does not call for help. Instead, she watches, listens, waits. Later, when the sun has dipped and the chickens have quieted, she approaches. He startles. She holds up a hand. "I've broth," she says. "Come, sit." His name is Dagon, though he offers it only after 2 bowls and half a loaf of bread. He is a soldier, was a soldier. He's not sure if the war is over. He's not even sure which side he was on. He speaks of sieges, not battles. Of cold, not glory. Of rotting feet, screaming boys, and orders barked in languages he barely understood. There were banners, he says once. Red ones, gold ones, blue. I followed one, then another, then none. He sleeps in Osric's barn that night, wrapped in old wool. In the morning, he is still there. Word spreads, as it always does. A soldier, a deserter, a madman, a ghost. Children throw pebbles from a distance. Men argue whether to turn him in, though none can agree to whom. Margery gives him work fixing fence posts, scraping ash. She keeps his dagger in a jar of salt on the mantel. More soldiers follow, not to the village, but to the road beyond it. First 1, then 3, then nearly a dozen pass by within a week, marching or stumbling in uneven groups. Some are armored, some barefoot, all hungry. They rarely speak. Their faces are drawn, and their weapons dull. Rumors arrive with them. A great rebellion in the north. A king usurped. Towns burned for taxes unpaid. The French raiding coastal lands. Or was it the Scots? Or was it our own men? Turned wild. No one knows. No one dares ask. The priest, who once scolded children for missing Mass, now buries his own silver beneath the altar. The reeve sharpens his scythe more often than usual. The miller bars his door. Then, one morning, the village wakes to smoke. A hamlet just 2 miles west has burned. The fields, the huts, the granary all ash. A single survivor reaches the edge of the village, barefoot and blistered, lips cracked. He says nothing at first, only points, then faints. His name is Emmerich. He is no more than 14. Once he recovers, he speaks slowly. Bandits, he says, or soldiers, or both. They wore no colors. They took everything. Food, women, even chickens. They laughed while they burned the fields. Osric calls a meeting under the old tree, where pigs used to be traded. Men gather with arms crossed. Some want to send scouts. Others argue for flight. One suggests building a wall, though with what wood and time, he cannot say. Duggan, silent until now, speaks. They come for grain, for meat, for warmth. They do not care if you kneel or run. What should we do? Then, someone snaps. He shrugs. Make ready. Sleep lightly. From that night on, the village changes. Fires are kept low. Lanterns are shuttered. A watch is set 2 men each night, rotating. Children are told stories not of saints, but of shadows and survival. The chapel becomes a refuge. It's stone-walled, once meant to hold prayer, now hold fear. Spring rains come, soaking the earth. Roads become rivers, wagons sink. But the men still come, leaner, hungrier, more violent. One afternoon, a group of 4 arrive not passing by, but entering. They are armed. Their boots are torn, but their blades are sharp. One carries a horn. Another wears a priest's stole. They demand ale, bread, shelter. The reeve offers his hut. Margery offers none. When the men begin to leer at the women, Duggan steps forward. He holds no sword, only a rake. But his eyes are cold. This is not your place, he says. They laugh. He does not. It ends in blood. Fast, brutal, quiet. 1 soldier flees. 2 are buried. 1 remains groaning, broken-legged, under the cart shed. The villagers gather. Margery does not speak. Osric does. What justice do we own? He asks. What mercy? They leave him there. By morning, he is gone. That night, you lie awake, listening, to wind, to branches, to the breathing of those beside you. The world outside the village feels larger now, and darker, a continent of chaos pressing in on every side. But the stars are clear, and still, life continues. children are born. Bread is baked. A calf takes its first steps. But no one forgets the soldier or the smoke, superstition, spirits, and the wise woman. The world beyond the village had turned violent, and those who remained behind turned inward. When the road ceased to bring strangers and the horizon bore only clouds, the people looked again to their fires, to their roots, and to the whispers that passed between hearthstones. Superstition did not return to the village. It had never left. It merely grew bolder. The signs were everywhere, if one had eyes for them. Crows gathering in odd numbers atop the old chapel roof, the milk curdling too quickly, a child born with one blue eye and one brown, a piglet that wouldn't squeal, dreams that lingered past morning. Margery, always the quiet center of things, had never claimed to be wise, but the villagers watched her nonetheless. Her hands knew where to press when lungs wheezed. Her herbs stopped bleeding. She knew which berries cured and which ones killed, and she knew when not to speak. One evening, as mist rolled in heavy and low, the village bell rang 4 times. 4, never a number used. 1 for birth, 2 for marriage, 3 for death. 4 was for things unnamed. A boy was missing. Thomas, barely 6 winters old, last seen chasing a butterfly beyond the hedgerows. A search was mounted quickly, frantically. Torches sputtered in damp air. Boots trampled soft earth. Mothers wailed. Fathers shouted his name as though loudness could undo disappearance. Margery went to her cottage and lit 7 candles, each a different color. She placed them in a circle and sat before them in silence. She did not pray, not aloud. Thomas was found the next morning beside the river, soaking wet, fast asleep. No bruises, no scratches, only a daisy behind one ear. When asked what had happened, he blinked and said, "She sang to me." Who? The lady in the water. Children are not punished for dreaming, but that day. The priest added salt to the chapel threshold, and Margery began to burn sage each dusk. The people turned superstitious not out of ignorance, but necessity, when logic offered no comfort and the world turned strange. It was stories that made sense of the night. A cow births a calf with 2 heads. A sign. The moon hangs blood orange in the sky. A warning. A shadow moves without sound. A spirit. Margery's hut became a place of quiet visits. People came with questions they did not voice, and left with tokens they could not explain. A strand of hair knotted 3 times. A pouch of dried mushrooms. A carved wooden spoon with symbols burned into its handle. No one asked her how she knew what to give. Then came the howling. At first, it was thought to be wolves, but no tracks were found. The noise came only on windless nights. Long, slow, sorrowful howls that chilled even the boldest men. On the 3rd night, Margery stood in the village green with bare feet and her arms raised. She said nothing. She did not move. But the sound did not return. Children whispered that she had made a pact. The priest refused to meet her eyes. And then, one evening, a woman arrived, not from the road, but from the woods. She was old, impossibly so, bent nearly double, her back a question mark, her skin like bark, her eyes white with blindness. She did not speak. She carried a staff carved with bones. Margery welcomed her without surprise. For 3 days, the woman stayed in Margery's hut. Smoke of strange colors poured from the chimney. No one approached. On the 4th day, the woman left at dawn. She left behind a bundle wrapped in black cloth and a single raven feather. From that day on, Margery's voice changed. Softer, deeper, more certain. When she said the rains would come, they came. When she said not to drink from the North Stream, a dead fox was found in it the next morning. No one doubted her again. Even the priest stepped aside when she passed. But not all were at peace. Young John, the cooper's son, declared it heresy. He spoke of devils and damnation. He called Margery a witch. The village listened, but did not act, until John's sister fell ill, fevered, raving, unresponsive. Margery came. She laid her hands upon the girl's head, whispered words none could hear, and placed a bowl of water at her feet. By morning, the fever broke. John said nothing more. The villagers began to leave offerings on Margery's steps. Bread, wool, coins, not payment gratitude. Then came the dream. Many in the village awoke one morning having dreamed the same dream. A tower, a scream, a pool of black water, a child crying. No one understood. Margery did. She told them to dig. Behind the chapel, where the land dipped like a cup, they dug. 3 feet down, they struck wood. A box, within it bones, small, fragile. A child, unmarked, unblessed. The priest wept. A proper burial was held. Bells rang 3 times. Margery wept as well. The next night, the howling returned. But this time, it was not mournful. It was joyful. And then, it ceased forever. The last winter, the sky turned to iron. It began in November, with a wind that howled like a lost beast. By December, snow fell without pause. By January, the ground was stone. The wells were ice, and hope grew brittle. In the village, silence reigned. Not the peaceful silence of prayer or snowfall, but a taut, fearful stillness, as if the earth itself dared not speak. This was not the first hard winter. The elders remembered other years when the ground offered nothing, when meat spoiled, when children faded like candlelight. But something about this winter was different, heavier, as if it meant to bury more than bodies. The first to fall was Martin, the thatcher's son. A cough, then a fever, then nothing. His mother sat beside his bed for 3 days before they carried him to the chapel. The second was a sheepdog named Bram. Not ill, just old. But his death unsettled everyone. Then came the smoke. One morning, a thin trail curled into the sky from the woods beyond the southern fields. The snow was too deep for travel, yet the smoke did not cease. Osric gathered a party to investigate. Margery insisted on joining. They returned with hollow eyes. A cottage stood in a clearing that none remembered. Inside, a fire burning low, a pot of stew still warm, and bones, human, clean, arranged in a circle. Margery said nothing, only placed a sprig of rosemary on the hearth. When they returned, no one asked what they'd seen. But that night, the priest locked the chapel doors from the inside, and Margery stayed awake until dawn. As January wore on, food ran low. Salted fish, barley, dried peas. Chickens stopped laying. Goats grew thin. Even the rats disappeared. Children were told stories to quiet their hunger. Stories of golden fields and endless bread, of summers to come, of angels. But one night, a child whispered, "I dreamt the snow would never melt," and none could say he was wrong. Desperation crept in slowly. First, doors were kept locked. Then, tools vanished. Then, tempers frayed. A man struck his wife for eating too much. A boy hid food under his mattress. The baker's wife wept over flour she could no longer feel between her fingers. Margery still walked each morning, to check, to watch, to leave a bundle of herbs or a scrap of warmth. Her strength did not wane. Her voice did not tremble. Then the birds came, crows, dozens of them, black against white, settling on rooftops and fences, watching. One pecked at the chapel door. The priest opened it and collapsed. A fever took him quickly. He whispered strange words, names no one knew. And then, one morning, he laughed until he died. Margery buried him herself. She did not pray. In February, the wind shifted, just slightly. The snow no longer fell straight. The sky brightened a shade, and a bird sang. Just one. A sparrow. Hope is strange. It returns like a memory. Sudden and painful, the villagers began to speak again. Children played, if only briefly. Bread was baked from the last of the flour, and Margery smiled. The snow began to melt. Drips echoed like music. Roots reached up. Sunlight returned. A calf was born. And then came the stranger. Not from the woods, not from the road, but from between. He wore robes of ash. His eyes were silver. He said he was a messenger. He asked for Margery. She did not hesitate. They walked together into the trees. No one followed. She did not return. But the snow melted, and that spring, the fields bloomed as never before.